North Lake is greater than the mean of the undergrads. So the alternative would be less than or equal to undergrad. So this is the claim down here. This is the thing that you hope to be true. This is a one-sided test. Does that look familiar to you from previous classes?
It does, yeah.
Okay, so that they're assuming you know that.
Yep.
Remember that. Now, that's where you go and look for when you're supposed to know, oh, this is a two sample t-test.
Okay.
Now, why is it a t-test? It's because you have a data set. It's not a z-test. You have a data set, some sort of a data set. Um, the t-test is used when the variances are unknown, and
Okay.
that is a reasonable assumption here in most cases. Your variances are rarely known, except in like textbook problems. So use a t-test when you're given a data set like you are here and the variances are unknown.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference between these two tables here is I'm assuming that this one says not equal variances, which it doesn't say. So that might be a question to ask your teacher.
Okay.
Um, you know, should we care about whether variances are equal or not equal? That might be something to bring up. Now, thinking about your current case study, is there a similar scenario where they can compare two groups? This is group one and group two and see like an increase or a decrease, anything like that?
So I don't have it on me. I don't have the case study on me, but I would imagine because each one that we have done has been pretty similar. They've kind of followed this pattern where it's um, like the last one was like a pizza, like what, like is there, can you say that the pizza is going to be able to make it in time below the 29-minute
Oh
guarantee
yeah,
mark
yeah, I
or something
remember.
like
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
yeah, I remember. Okay. Uh, right. Um, so like it's very easy to write the same question for
Mhm.
for a different case study, but it's going to be something where like something got worse, got better, improved, and improved,
Right.
things like that.
Okay.
All right. So then when you've got a two sample t-test, you just look at the p-value. Your p-value is basically zero. So your p-value is less than alpha. So you reject H0, which means you support the claim that the grades at North Lake are significantly inflated compared to the undergraduate grades. So the claim is always comes from the kind of the question or the thing you're trying to prove.
And we get to there by the p value. If it's less
Yeah.
than the point
Yeah.
zero 0.05,
Yep.
then we reject the null hypothesis, correct?
Right.
Okay.
If you look at the answer, they choose to make an equality first. But this one's pretty clear that inflated to me means it goes up.
Mm-hmm. So like your response, like do you think that would be enough? Like because I'm looking here and she has like a paragraph written. Do you think it needs to be to that level of information?
That's where you got to go ask the instructor.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, she has a lot of detail in here, whereas yours is, I mean, that's how I probably would have
This this is
said
the
it.
bullet points. This is the bullet
Yeah,
points of what, and so that's where you want to ask, do you want bullet points or do you
yeah,
want sentences?
right,
Because what is written is more like what you would have in paper, a
right,
formal paper.
right. Okay,
And this is an exam, not a formal paper, but maybe that's what they want. Uh,
okay,
I don't know. I'm very recipe driven, and so I'm more structured where I just want the highlights. I'm not gonna, but if you were to
sure.
like, if you were to go back and replay the video and find some software that does voice to text, I probably have something similar to what is in the output there.
Okay.
Meaning like if you grabbed all the words, I guess, it would be the same.
Yeah, because I see the way that she responds to some of this stuff, and it's like so in depth, where it's like I just don't know if that's normal. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, if you've ever taken an exam and it needed to be to that extent, or if like what you're writing right now is good.
You got to ask them. They're grading it. Now, the answer is typically, though, match what they do. Give them what they want. Write full sentences.
Okay.
And if you're not sure how to do that, practice that, and give it to them. Say, is this acceptable?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
all right. What variables significantly predict MBA VPA?
Yeah.
So we looked at this table earlier, table 2 earlier. We looked at that earlier.
Okay.
Um, now what we're what we're missing in this table are the p-values. So we can't just no, sorry, let me grab the table. So we're looking at the column with M VPA. We're looking at just this column here.
Okay.
And these are R values, or are they R squared values? Oh, they're R values. Plus or minus. Okay. So for something to be significant,
Okay.
there is a critical R value,
Okay.
and it's based on the sample size. Okay, so let's see here. So there's the sample size is 202. So the degrees of freedom, it's either -1 or -2. It doesn't really matter at this level. But if
Okay.
you were to go to the t distribution, and you're no calculator on this?
So we just need like a basic one, like a handheld
Okay.
one.
Because what I'm not
So,
seeing here is like a t table. Look at the
okay.
answer, because the answer does refer to a critical value. Uh, The answer 1A above. All right, so this is where, again, I need a little bit more information to know how to. I need to know what you're going to be allowed to do, because the answer says this critical value plus or minus 0.139. Uh, I don't know how they're getting that from 1A. Let me
Okay.
go look at 1A. Let me look at 1A one more time.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there they give the 95% plus or minus 0.139. So okay, so normally this plus or minus 0.139 comes from a t table, or you use the calculator with a t distribution. I have no idea how you're supposed to do this without either of those. Let me see if they. So I might ask my instructor where they actually got this critical value from, because I don't see it in 1A answer above.
Okay.
But that's the key. So once you know the critical value, if any of the R values are bigger than 0.139, they are significant. So you start checking the box there. Significant, 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 and significant.
Okay.
The negative ones are not significant, not because they're negative, but because they have to be in the critical value. Just to be clear, it's minus 0.139 and positive 0.139. Those are the critical values. So any of these values that are beyond that are significant.
Okay.
But question is, how are you supposed to get this value? Because I don't see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
1A output to correlation table. I'm looking at the correlation table. How the hell are you supposed to know this? I don't know. Maybe it's in another table.
Mm.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Might be a question to ask. Might just asking, am I going to get a t-table, or if I'm not, how am I supposed to know this number? Which we could like we could. I mean, there's kind of like a general. I mean, I could we because this n is so high, it's gonna be pretty low. This number
Okay.
close to zero. So that I mean that's where you um so getting back to your question about like, well, what should I write? Well, Matthew over here just checked the boxes here. Like you need to put into words everything I just said, which is like looking at the first column, the uh regression values. You compare them to the critical value. If they exceed the critical value, then they are significant. So you say, GMAT, UGPA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are significant. Age and foreign are not significant.
Okay. But yeah, because now I see what you mean by where how would I know that? Like how would
Well,
I know
yeah,
this point 139? Like I don't know where I would get that from.
yeah. Now
Okay.
this is so to be fair to Matthew here that I did slightly misspeak. The answer goes on to say though that UG major, which I don't know what that is until now, it's a nominal variable, and UG rating is an ordinal variable. Those cannot be included.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know that because I didn't look at the data set, but there's something about like, okay, so you can only do regression on ratio data values, ratio data. So nominal, names, categories, ordinal, how you feel, the Likert scale, 1 to 5. These are not included.
Okay.
So I didn't know that. So those would also not be included. That's a little wrinkle that probably why this class is so difficult for students, because you
Yeah,
need to
that's
know. So those would actually not be in your answer.
okay. Yeah, because that yeah, I didn't know that. So they're saying that like the undergrad major itself wouldn't be in there, and then the undergrad rating, I don't know what that is, but
Yeah,
just
that comes
just
from.
because yeah,
So in your current data set, this is where it would be good to have that data set out or that case study out, start looking at, well, which variables are there are nominal, which are ordinal, which are
okay.
ratio.
Nominal, ordinal. Yeah, I'm gonna have to I'll talk to her about where that number comes from or how would you would even get that because just looking I wouldn't have been able to know that. I would have had
I
no
wouldn't either.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, number 5.
Yeah.
Explain output number 6. So that's good. They're telling you which one to go to. There's no question about which one it is. Let's go grab it.
Okay.
And are the mean values significantly different? Why is this result obvious? I don't know. Why are you asking me? So, okay, before I put in the table, the null hypothesis here is that the means are the same.
Okay.
The alternative hypothesis is that they are different. This is the claim. This is a two-tailed test because it's a not equal to. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like the second question refers to like something again in the data set that I wouldn't really know unless I'd worked with it over and over again.
Okay.
But that I'll kind of get to that. So here's table 6. You're looking for the two-tailed p-value, which is 0, which is less than the alpha, which is point zero. It does say that in the first page. I think I remember made a comment last time. I said, well, it depends on the alpha level. It is 0.05 on the first page. So you would reject H0, support the claim that the means are different. Now, this is where we almost need to know what high GPA is. Do you know anything about that from this data set? Like
I
what that
don't.
refers to? Okay.
I don't. What I yeah.
So the reason it
Um.
may be obvious is that high GPA, if we're just being very literal here, take the words for what they mean. Like it's people that have a GPA over a certain threshold.
Right.
And so if they have it over a certain threshold, well, of course, their mean is likely going to be higher than those that don't meet that threshold.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That obviously makes sense.
Yeah. So that is, I guess, why it's obvious, but this really comes from knowing what the variables actually knowing the variables. So when you look at your new case study, you want to know those variables inside and out, like note card kind of stuff where you flashcards where you just you know them. You can forget them after the class, obviously, but you'd like to know what they mean.
Okay.
So here's what your instructor throws in here as a discussion point. The result is obvious because the grouping variable high GPA was based on breaking the sample into two groups, one with GPAs lower than the median and others with GPAs higher than the median. There you go. I don't know how you would know that. That is in the case study. Since the groups were intended to have low and high GPAs, and surprised that the average GPA are significantly different. What it really comes down to is how the distribution of those scores are on each side of the median. Like it's possible that they could have a distribution that's really very close to the median, and then maybe they are not significantly different. But what reality is they probably have like like maybe they're saying something like that. So the means are, very far apart. We're
Okay.
not sure.
Okay.
Um, this is a weird thing like it's a weird thing to even consider this, because you already know this.
Right. Right.
It's like, yeah, and anyway, okay. So you can see the answer is fairly long. Now, like I think sometimes instructors put these wordy answers because that's their style and they want to give you more explanation. Um,
Okay.
if I'm grading stuff, I don't want to read all this. That's
Right.
me. Like I want to read
Yeah.
bullet points. I want to, okay, check, p-value, good, reject. Okay, like good, 10 out of 10. I don't want to read,
Right.
but maybe your instructor does.
Okay.
So you got to ask.
Yeah. That's probably a good idea to get that clarified before I take this test.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. 7, 8, 9. You can also kind of pick up on the structure. Like, are they very structured in class? Do they show up on time? Do they always have everything kind of neat and orderly? Are they, you can kind of learn these things too from just interacting with them.
Yeah.
All right. Imagine that foreign is related to MBA, GPA in the population. Other than sampling error, give one explanation for why foreign is not a strong predictor of MBA, GPA in our sample. Okay, this so foreign is probably means like it's probably a categorical variable like yes, they are from a foreign country, no, they're not, which I don't know. Um, so uh it'd be nice to know what this variable actually is, if it's a category or something else. So sampling error. So this is not a statistical question. It's more like I don't want to say this. There's no like data analysis for this mostly. There's no like typical table for it. The
Okay.
answer refers to Um, and I don't know where you get this, but it says only 30 of the 202 students are foreign. So I'm looking at all the tables now. I mean, I don't know where you would know that unless you had the
Uh,
data set.
or maybe in is it table one? What's got the count or the sum? I
Yeah,
mean,
count. Foreign, see foreign, there you go. So the sum there, yeah, that's a good one to look at. Although this is pretty, this is why you gotta like really know your data set in and out. You're right, it is right there.
yeah,
And so what the answer's trying to say is that there's just not that many students to to have
to
at
get
as
anything from it.
yeah.
Okay. So could it be a sampling error though? Like I know it says not to use that, but would that be classified as that?
Well, it's kind of answers this question. Like let's like what we don't know. Let's go actually go to foreign. So what we're looking for is in table two. We're looking to see like does foreign show up anywhere as being significant?
No,
And it doesn't.
no.
Especially in the GPA. Like that's the big one. Okay. So that would tell us like, oh, like foreign students do really well, which maybe is the perception. But the like it could be that you just sample a bunch of the students that do well or don't do well. Um, that we have, but we don't have enough. I think what they're trying to say in the answer is that you don't have enough to really make a good
Oh,
claim.
like you don't have, yeah, you don't have enough large enough group.
Yeah,
Okay.
foreign is not a strong predictor. I think I would be inclined to put in here that foreign is not a significant variable towards GPA. And then what they're really asking is, well, why? Um, so that's where you might say something about the small sample size or that there's other factors that are a better predictor of MBA GPA.
Okay.
I don't know. It's sort of a vague question it almost leads to like, well, maybe the foreign students, they don't speak English well, and that's why they struggle to like. It's almost like you're trying to give something that's not in the data sets.
Right. And that's
Like,
kind of what I initially thought was like, well, like you had just said, like, well, maybe it's a culture thing, but I don't think that's what they're looking for.
yeah. Has your teacher mentioned anything like, all the questions but one will be from the table, or like something to help you to.
No, no, she hasn't really given us, she's been kind of tight lipped about it. She won't really like tell us much. She just says, hey, this case study, this particular one is going to be it. So I looked through it, but there's no tables or questions. It's just like the case study itself. So it's kind of hard to predict what is going to be on there because there's no real like information as far as there's no tables, there's nothing like that. So
Okay. All right. So I'll try to give you um, more kind of information, things I'm seeing that could be useful here. So one of the things I noticed when I read this question is that your teacher uses this word controls for. Is that something you've been hearing in class? Anything like that?
I haven't heard it from her.
Okay. Okay. Um, all right. So number 7, We looked at this last time, and now I have a better. So I'm gonna snip in the output from table 7 and table 8, and I remember us looking at this, and because I did not know the variables, I made I didn't give you the right information. So we now know that UG major and UG rating are nominal and ordinal variables,
Okay.
and these are not included in regression.
Okay.
You need to code them, which I don't know if that was done. That might be a question, but you don't include them in the regression. That's part of the answer, the first answer. The reason I bring that up is your teacher's giving you two regression outputs in 7 and 8. 7 is correct, but 8 is not. They look really, really similar. Um, I think your teacher does want you to point to which table you're using. So if you point to the wrong table, and we kind of and I kind of mentioned that back here in when its first one was like, well, why couldn't we assume equal variances? Um, if you refer to the wrong table, my guess is you might get the question completely wrong. So that might be something to ask is like, hey, while I've been studying, I've noticed that like I get the same answer if even if I use the wrong table. Do you want us to say which table we're using or
Yeah, I
not?
noticed that too. I noticed he gives us a slightly different.
Yes. And so in 7 and 8, table 7 and 8, um, sorry, I'm way down here. Uh, like GMAT, sorry, the p-value for GMAT is -15. So it's significant. Same down here. But the whole analysis is wrong because you don't include nominal and ordinal variables in your regression analysis. Okay. So the
Okay.
analysis that it controls for all other variables is multiple linear regression. This is a straight definition that you will want to look up or remind yourself. Okay. And so you want to say, oh, well, that means I need to use the output in 7, not 8, because 7 does not include those nominal and ordinal variables. So we're like, okay, this is the correct output. Yay. All right.
Yeah.
So now that we have the correct output, we can actually go back and try to answer the question. Right. Um, so the way you determine the significance, the p-values here is in short, and it's written in the answer, is you hold the other variables constant, and that's how you decide if one is significant or not. So like when you're trying to decide if GMAT is significant, you hold the other variables constant. When you try to figure out if UGPA is significant, you hold the other variables constant, and so on.
So real quick, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by holding them constant?
They don't change. You
Okay.
the calculation looks at, and it's built into the software, but the you don't allow these variables to change when you're looking at GMAT to determine if it's significant or not.
Okay.
Right now 7 is specifically looking though at uh, that's for impact of GMAT. 7 just wants to look at GMAT though, just GMAT. Oops. I'll be right back with you. All right, I'm back with you. So you could mistakenly think that you want to use just the single regression of GMAT, which I think is in one of the earlier tables. No, I guess not. Okay, so I kind of take so table 11, output 11 has GMAT as the only variable. So
Okay.
this is a single regression, but when you control for all the other variables, that this is not the case. This only includes this variable, but it doesn't control for the other ones. And that's why I was asking if your teacher is emphasizing that word controls for. Have you guys talked about multiple linear regression in class?
Yeah, so we're like in the middle of it right now.
Okay.
So she's not asking which one specifically for the GPA. She's asking that controls all the other ones.
Yeah, so the because they're both of these, like if it just said, if it just asked, we want to test for the impact of GMAT on first year MBA GPA. Okay. But we don't, it doesn't, if it avoids the controls for all the variables, then it would be just, then it would be 11.
Okay.
But the words controls for means, hey, use a multiple linear regression, but furthermore, only use the multiple linear regression that includes the variables that you can use regression for, which is you cannot include UG major and UG rating because those are nominal and ordinal.
Oh, gotcha.
Any uh any other thoughts on that before we move?
Um, no, I think that's it. Does she have a look at the answer to this? If oh no, it's actually pretty short. Okay, I just didn't know. I just didn't know how long of a response you wanted, but
Yeah, it's like I gotta be careful because my answers are not what the teacher wants. So we gotta be careful here. So number 8 here, and you can't really go by how much space she gives either. That's also not a necessarily a good thing here. So let's go to output number 7 again. If that's right here. GMAT and age have almost the same coefficients. So they're looking at these two right here. Those are the coefficients.
okay.
And yet one is significant, the other is not. The coefficient has nothing to do with whether it's significant or not. It's only the standard error. Um, it's the coefficient and the standard error that matter. Which I hope the answer says. We'll see what it says here. Uh, okay, the reason this XY influence the coefficient larger scale relative to G. Okay. Well, that's not quite the answer I was going to say. Um, so the p-value is the coefficient divided by the standard error.
Okay.
And the t-stat is what tells you the p-value. It leads to the p-value. So the coefficient being the same, really, it doesn't matter. It really comes down to what's the difference in the standard error. But that's not quite the way the answer is written. The answer talks about the fact that yeah, GMAT is significant because the p-value is less than 0.05, but this one is greater than 0.05. So one is significant, one is not. Um, you basically trying to describe, well, why is like what's more important here? A little bit of an increase in GMAT or a little bit of an increase in age? Like what has a bigger impact in terms of the actual like variables? Like think of age. Age is like, okay, I'm going to go from 18 to 19. That's a 1 unit increase.
Right.
maybe that's bad. Maybe that's too young. The GMAT score might be like 500 to 550, which I know is probably low, but that's a 50-point increase.
Okay.
So the idea is that because like this is a bigger increase, you're going to see more like that coefficient gets multiplied by a bigger number, whereas a 1 unit increase in age only increases it by like 0.0052, whereas like the 50-point increase is going to increase that number quite a bit.
Okay. What so real quick, what is the coefficient? Like how would you break that down?
Yeah, let me reset here. Grab this table again. So the idea here is that MBA GPA equals 0.8831 plus 0.0023 times the GMAT score plus 0.2983 times the UGPA score minus 0.0052 times the age, and then minus the 0.0243 times the foreign.
That's how you get the coefficient?
No, the coefficients come from the software.
Oh, okay.
Hang on just a second, please. Yeah, go. I'm back. How do they calculate the coefficients? That's from the multiple linear regression analysis, and that's hidden from.
But like what specifically is that telling us? What is the
Oh,
GMAT one like telling us?
okay.
Like what
So like it's like take you or some other student. They've got a GMAT score, they've got an undergraduate GPA, they've got an age, and they're foreign or not, and we would put those into this equation and get out a possible GPA.
okay.
So the coefficients tell you like how much an increase in like 1 point of your GPA increases the overall GPA. Or sorry, how much an increase in like your GMAT score affects the GPA.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay. So undergraduate, this like the bigger the coefficient, the more it has an impact. But the
Okay,
idea
and
is that the idea with this question though is that like age is a 1 point increase seems normal. Um, but that but like a GMAT score increase is going to be an order of magnitude bigger, like 50 is bigger than one order of magnitude bigger. So it's going to, even though the coefficients are the same, that's a more expected increase in score. So
right, it's a
it like
work.
it contributes more to the overall one.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, let's go on to number, would it be 9? That we're up to. Okay. All right, let me snip that in. All right, how well are we able to predict GMAT scores from undergraduate GPA? How can we improve this prediction? This again kind of leans towards some sort of a regression. Um, this one's saying just from GPA though, GMAT just from GPA. And table 10 has just that. Okay, so it says, okay, you got to get, got to know that this exists. There's your GMAT, that's your dependent variable. It's just GPA, that's your independent variable. Okay, and we know that uh, we know that the the model is significant. So that's a good thing. We also know that this is significant, and that's good. Um, so the thing though that we're trying to figure out though is how good is the model? Even though the model is significant, that's where you care about the R squared value.
Okay.
So this says 25.4% of the variation in GMAT is explained by GPA. It also means that 74.6% of the variation is explained by other variables because the total variation is 100%. So this is pretty
Okay.
low. That means there's a lot of other things out there.
Okay.
But let's see what the answer says here. Examine R squared. Yeah, then it says that R squared. So what could we do? So we would want to look for another model for GMAT that includes more variables, which we have. We have maybe I'm looking for it. Yeah, so output 9 has the same dependent variable, but
Mm-hmm.
it includes more inputs. And you can see immediately that the R squared value went up. It's now 34.1%, which is
Okay.
better than the 25%, but it includes two more variables.
Okay. So is that 34%? Is that good enough?
34.1%. No, I don't
Yeah.
think it's very good. I mean, I wouldn't bet anything on that.
Okay. That's obviously like the highest we're gonna get out of these outputs.
No, you can get much higher than that, but it has to be a much more significant contributor.
Okay.
Um, Let me look through the other results and see if any of them stand out. Uh, table eights for MBA GPA is 59%. All right. Probably all we're gonna get done today. We go ahead and stop the recording here.